Welcome to Quaver TV. I am Quaver TV. This is genius, motherfucker. Now picture this: a worm, not the kind you bait a hook with, not the one squirming in dirt. This one moves through sound, through electricity, through you. This is the funky worm, born in 1973 by a group of interdimensional architects called the Ohio Players. And when I say interdimensional, I mean it. Because this wasn't just funk, it was a transmission, something that didn't come from here. Now the Ohio Players, let's give them the respect they earned. These weren't just musicians, these were gods of groove. Formed in Dayton, Ohio, and that's right, Ohio was the funk capital before the West Coast even had a passport. These brothers made music that felt like sweat, sex, space, and science fiction all in one track. They had hits like Love Roller Coaster, Fire, Skin Tight. You could smell the cologne and danger coming off their records. Album covers so wild they had to be censored. These were grown men making grown funk. And right in the middle of that heat, they dropped Funky Worm, this weird little mutant of a song that didn't sound like anything else. A fake old lady talking about her grandson, a worm who plays the synthesizer. And then boom, that sound, that squeal, that twisting, high-pitched, serpentine, electronic thing. It didn't sound like Earth, it didn't sound like funk. It sounded like the Borg from Star Trek hijacked a keyboard and beamed itself into the dance floor. That's what that synth was. It wasn't played, it spoke. It was mechanical and alive. Like it could plug into your skull and rewrite your code while you nodded your head. If you've seen that moment where they turn Picard into Locutus, where his mind gets overwritten and his body gets wired into the collective, that's what this sound does. You hear it and it gets in. It's a sonic assimilation. The worm is crawling in your ear canal, through your neurons, laughing while it rewires you from the inside out. The man responsible for that mind melt, Junie Morrison, keyboardist, genius, and honestly, a ghost in his own time. Junie didn't just play the synth, he unleashed it. He wasn't just a musician, he was a sound sorcerer. This was before MIDI, before plugins. He sat down with an ARP Pro soloist and bent reality. He made that synth cry, shout, wiggle, and scream. You could argue he invented the entire G-funk sound without even knowing it. He left the Players not long after and later worked with Parliament Funkadelic. But did he get paid off all those flips of Funky Worm? Not like he should have. And the Ohio Players, same story. Used everywhere, loved by everyone, but compensated rarely. This industry's got a habit of eating its profits. But you can't erase what they created. Because that worm, that one little line got sampled so many times, it's like a viral code. It's in the system. Hip-hop producers, especially out west, used it like a ritual. Like drawing a pentagram in a beat. You laid that synth down, and the track was baptized in funk. You could feel it coming through the speakers, not just music, but some slithering, dangerous spirit that couldn't be stopped. Every time someone flipped it, it worked. Every time someone pulled that squeal into a beat, it hit. It's like the worm was cursed in the best way. You can't fail with it. It's too funky, too twisted, too alive. And that's what makes this song, this sound so genius. It wasn't just ahead of its time. It was outside of time. It crawled into hip-hop's future before hip-hop even knew it existed. It didn't ask permission. It just showed up. So when we talk about samples, let's talk about this one with reverence. Let's talk about how it sounds like Pan's flute being played by a machine. Let's talk about how it turns rappers into gods, how it wakes up the bass line, how it throws color into black and white beats. Let's talk about how the Ohio Players and Junie Morrison gave us something more than music. They gave us a code, a key, a worm that opens doors. And now that door is open. And we're walking through it. Once the worm was loose, it didn't slither, it invaded. It didn't crawl, it marched. Straight into the streets of Compton. Into the hands of a producer named Dre and a group called N.W.A, who weren't just making noise, they were reshaping music. And the first time we heard that worm fully weaponized, Dopamine. That high-pitched synth squeal that's not background, that's the narrator, that's the shadow, that's the fifth member in the group. It cuts through the track like static in your TV after midnight. And it starts with a line, ooh, that's funky sampled from the Ohio Players, warped just enough to feel familiar and eerie at the same time. Dre didn't take the whole skit, he just took the essence, just enough to let you know something strange and powerful was about to happen. Like the door to a cartoon hell just opened up, and Cube stepped out with a verse. And then that line, N.W.A. dopamine. This is where Dre first flipped the worm and flipped it hard. That high-pitched squeal wasn't just a sample, it was a signal. A red flag, the soundtrack to a whole different kind of storytelling. And in the middle of that bounce and buzz, they hit you with this. Hey, Mr. Dopamine, you think you're slick. You sold crack to my sister and now she's sick. But if she happens to die because of your drug, I'm putting in your cooler a 38 slug. That line wasn't Ice Cube. That was some dude who sounded like a Mexican gangbanger from L.A. And that accent, that delivery made the whole thing feel real. It was raw. It was a threat. Not just a clever rhyme, but a warning out the mouth of someone you might actually run into on the block. That's what made it hit so hard. It was like the worm was dancing while someone loaded a pistol. That contradiction, goofy synth, deadly bars is what made Dope Man disturbing and unforgettable. Now roll forward a bit. Eazy-E. Easy Does It. My first West Coast artist. My entry point. I went from Beastie Boys to Run DMC. But Easy was the one that made the West feel alive. I was just getting into rap, and this track hit me like nothing else. That voice, that laugh, that confidence. It was cartoon and menace at the same time. A perfect match for that funky worm bounce. And that line? Hey Easy, why you wear your pants like that? I wear my pants like this for easy access, baby. Right there, game, comedy, and filth all in one bar. That line had presence. And the video man, the way he showed up on that big screen at a concert while he was locked up. Iconic. Dre and Cube hype on stage, the crowd going wild, and then he busts through the screen like some rap superhero and takes over the whole show. That moment stuck with me for life. It was all new. The music, the weed, the women, the parties. I found the Chronic and I found Pussy in that era. And Easy was the soundtrack to it all. N.W.A. Always into something. This dropped in 1991. The air in LA was heavy. Rodney King had already been beaten, but the riots hadn't exploded yet. Ice Cube had just left N.W.A. and everything was shaky. Fans didn't know who to follow, and the group was coming off that split with tension thick in the background. And this was their answer. The hook had that reggae vibe common back then, but the key wasn't the chorus. The key was that funky worm squeal creeping back in. Dre had already used it in Dope Man, and now here it was again. Flipped cleaner, darker, more controlled. People act like the G-Funk era started with Dre Day or New Thin, but a G-Thang. But this was already it. And then M.C. Ren walks into the second verse and drops the line. I heard a dope beat. Somebody told me Buck did it. But if Dre didn't do it, I can't fur with it. That wasn't just a shot at Cube. That was a statement about Dre. About his beats. About his ownership of sound. Ren wasn't screaming. He was surgical. That was calm confidence backed by funk and fire. The worm was right there, sliding through it all like a signature. Dre had already arrived. The world just hadn't caught up yet. Then came Dre Day. The Chronic. Snoop's official breakout. That funky worm sound is polished now. Not raw like before, but still slithering, still haunting, still smiling in the background while Dre and Snoop go off. And then Snoop steps in with one of the most iconic entrances in hip-hop history. Bow wow, wow, yippee yo, yippee yay, doggy dogs in the mother fewing house. That wasn't a verse, that was an announcement. Death Row had arrived, Snoop had arrived, and the world changed. Yeah, we saw him on deep cover, but this was different. This was the Chronic. This was the moment. And for me, that was the best time of my life. 2 summers of rolling with my cousin, hitting parties, clubs, women, smoke everywhere, and this song on repeat. It was the backdrop to my entire youth. And that synth? It wasn't just a sound. It was a memory locked in wax. That worm was the summer. And then serial killer. You want to talk about lyrical Snoop? You want to see the poet underneath the pimp? It's right here. No hooks, no radio polish, just bars. Don't make a move for your gat so soon, 'cause I drop bombs like Platoon. And now walk with me, hold my hand and let me lead you. I'll take you on a journey, and I promise I won't leave you. I won't leave you. And that echo, I won't leave you. It wasn't just reverb, it sounded like a callback from another dimension inside the song, like the track itself was answering him, confirming it, whispering it back. It made the line hit deeper. Like Snoop wasn't just rapping, he was bending reality. That's when you saw what Snoop really was, pure MC. That was inspiration, vision and flow, braided together so tight it sounded effortless. That was West Coast poetry in motion, before the cameras, before the sitcoms. That was Snoop the G, standing in his truth with a worm in the wires. Every time Dre or anyone in his orbit touched that worm, it became gold. You could polish it, stretch it, warp it. But you couldn't miss. It was too funky to fail, too alien to ignore. It had a power to it. Like once you let it into the beat, it took over, controlled the whole track. It's not just a sample, it's a possession. And at this point, West Coast wasn't just using the funky worm. It was the funky worm. Now this is where the worm starts to mutate. We are still in the orbit of Dre, but this is the edge of the map. The part where things get a little weirder, a little funnier, a little more personal. D, J, Quik, Mo Pussy. This wasn't the raw aggression of N.W.A. or the polished dominance of Death Row. This was funk turned freaky. We didn't really mess with Quik at first. We were Compton's most wanted fans. That whole MC8 versus Quik tension had us choosing sides by default. But Mo Pussy, that was different. That was a song we played with the girls. Especially my homie's sister. It was nasty. It was hilarious. And it had that funky worm crawling through the background like it was peeking out from under a motel bed. And that line? I came in the dough, said it before, I never let a pussy get in the way of my flow. That's genius, motherfucker. That's confidence. That's comedy. That's rhythm. It was filthy and slick and smooth all at once. And it hit even harder because it was true. That was Quik in full control. And it felt like because I got high before Afroman ever dropped it. The same kind of stoned, giggling raunch, but with more bounce and way more style. Then came M. C. Ren, Final Frontier. Now this was something else. This wasn't a party record. This was Ren going solo, body slamming the booth with that cold, no-smile delivery. But there was one line, one moment that hit different. If you fur with me, you give up the rapping and singing the blues. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. That flip of the tongue, fast, sharp, smooth. It was the first time we ever heard anybody do that. Before Twister, before Bone, before Das EFX, my group mate Vicious Dog put me up on it. He hit me with that line like it was a secret weapon, played it back and said, "Yo, listen to this." And I did. And I said, "Oh shh." That summer we were studying everything West Coast. Ren was on repeat, so was Big Mike, even though he was from the South. Because when something's dope, it's dope, period. But now the worm was getting restless. It was leaving L. A, breaking out of the palm trees and khakis, heading towards something different. And that's when it crawled its way into Michigan. M. C. Breed, ain't no future in your frontin'. Now listen, this was Pride, Michigan Pride. Breed was from Flint, and I'm from Grand Rapids. There wasn't no Eminem yet. We had the KMC crew with The Devil Came Up to Michigan, straight fire. We had Redhead Kingpin, also Grand Rapids, dropping Do the Right Thing, and even scoring that scene in New Jack City when they infiltrate the Carter. That was our lane, our moment. When Breed came out with that worm squeal behind him, it was a statement, like yeah, we got the funk too. We got something to say too, and when that track dropped, it was the soundtrack to a basketball summer. Me and my cousin Juice were running the Gus Macca tournament, sweating in the sun, bumping that track between games. And Breed said it how we felt it. If I become the president, I must stay fat. Leave it up to me, I'd paint the White House black. It wasn't political, it was personal, it was defiant, it was Michigan as hell. No pretending, no fronting, just raw pride and funk in your face. This was the worm breaking borders, crossing state lines, no longer just West Coast, now it was Midwest, still funky, still dangerous, but with a different accent, a different rhythm, a different purpose. And that's where we go next, because the worm didn't stop in Flint. It kept moving. Then there was X-Clan. They were different, Afrocentric, loud with it, proud with it. They didn't just rap, they educated, they marched, they wore the colors and carried the weight, and they hit at a time when I was going to an all-white school. Most of the white kids were starting to feel like hip-hop didn't speak to them anymore, like the takeover of blackness had shut the door. But I was half black, half white, lived with my father, who was black. He's gone now, rest in power. But back then, I was in a full-on identity crisis. Rock and roll was in me, but hip-hop, that's where my soul was. That's what I wanted to do. And when I heard X-Clan's Exodus, with that funky worm sliding behind the message, it hit different. This wasn't just funk for the party, this was funk for the people. And the line that stuck with me, the one that brought it all together, came from Brother J. I'm just a bro, not New Jack or Joe, it be freedom or death. That means me going for broke. That's not just poetry, that's declaration. He's not claiming to be a superhero, he's not posturing. He's just a man, a bro, standing in the shadow of revolution, ready to give everything, freedom or death. That's Malcolm X, that's Black Panthers. And Professor X, the group's spiritual leader, was the son of Sonny Carson. This wasn't just music, this was lineage, this was legacy. Now I don't ride with all their beliefs. They were 5%ers, like a lot of the early conscious artists, saying they were God's same way Rakim and Wu-Tang talked. I never believed that, a man ain't God. Only Yahweh holds that title. But still I respected their mission. I respected that they brought intellect, pride and strength into the game without ever backing down or dumbing it down. And with that worm behind them. That wasn't coincidence, that was strategy, that was weaponized funk for the mind this time, not just the body. Too short, freaky tales. Now this is way before N.W.A, before Death Row, before the Chronic. This is 16-year-old me. Run DMC hat tilted just right, dirty little white friends getting me into trouble, always trying to see a boobie, always poking at the edge of something adult. Too short was that guy, the underground legend passed around on tapes like contraband. No hooks, no apologies, just straight raunchy story after story with that worm slithering behind him like a cartoon devil. We used to bump this one, trying to self-install speakers. Me and Jason, chasing two things, bass and pussy. And this track had both. That bass hit hard, and the worm was right there twisting through it all like it was watching. Every line was filthy, every verse a punchline. And the one that stuck, 2 tons of fun, Big Mama Jama, a country girl from Alabama. We picked that line not just because it's funny, but because it's real. I've been dealing with crazy Alabama girls for the last 10 years, so when Too Short dropped that, it felt like he was predicting the future. He said it slick, said it low, said it like he'd been there. And we were there, in our own way, chasing the same kind of madness, laughing at the chaos. Then years later the worm shows up again, way on the other side of time and style, in Kendrick Lamar's M.A.A.D City. Now this was my introduction to K. The first track I heard, and I knew instantly this kid was Compton, straight out of the same bloodline as Easy, Dre, 8. That voice had weight, that track had that old school fire under it. And it's no accident, because MC, 8 is on it. And 8 being there, that wasn't just a cosign, that was a ceremony, that was the passing of the torch. Kendrick hits you with the line, if Pyrus and Crips all got along, they'd probably gun me down by the end of this song. And you gotta really hear what he's saying. He's not pledging allegiance to either side. He's saying he's so powerful, so honest, and so true in his message that both sides might team up just to take him out. That's fear. That's prophecy. That's danger wrapped in a rhyme. Kendrick ain't just surviving the city, he's rising above it. But that rise makes him a target. That line ain't paranoia. It's the reality of being powerful in a place that don't forgive power without allegiance. Then MC 8 slides in, no theatrics, no rush, just war talk. And he drops, regulators in the whip, down the boulevard with the pistol grip. That's the old guard reporting for duty. That's 8 saying, you do what you gotta do, young blood. I'm still riding. He's the soldier, the street general, holding the line for Kendrick like a real Compton vet. And what's wild, it's not even about age or time, it's about continuity. 8 is saying the city still moves like it always did. He's not retired, he's not faded, he's loaded, and he's rolling. It's one of the rare moments in hip-hop where you don't just hear two artists, you feel the generational alliance. The Worm's there too, squealing in the back, like it knows something big is happening. Because it is. From the Oakland tapes, to the Compton tapes, to the new generation still carrying that synth like it's sacred. The Worm lives. Different tempo, different era, same spirit. Thank you for tagging along through this one. I know it was a long ride, but it had to be. You can't tell a story like this halfway. I was born in 1975, and yeah, the funky Worm was already out there, doing its thing. But I didn't really discover it until hip-hop had fully grabbed the wheel. I didn't grow up with it on the radio. I didn't wear it into my childhood like a favorite song. I stumbled across it once or twice, and it stuck, got in my head, wiggled through my memories, found its way into the soundtrack of my life. That's what made me do this. I'm a producer, I'm a rapper, and I'm definitely gonna use the funky Worm in my own music. But before I did that, I needed to take you on this journey, not just as a historian or a fan, but from my heart, from my soul. Because every single song that Worm crept into meant something to me. Every one of them carried a piece of where I was, who I was with, or what I was chasing. This wasn't research, this was remembrance. This is genius, and this was the beginning of season 2. The real earworm, the soundtrack of my life. If you've been rocking with me, then you already know we've been breaking down Method Man, Marvin Gaye, Max Martin, Helter Skelter, Wu-Tang, Rakim, Snoop, and more. And coming soon, we've got Lord Finesse, we've got the Juice Crew, and yes, we're getting into the green-eyed bandit himself, Eric Sermon and the classic Strictly Business. Also check out my other series, Well That's Interesting, where we go deep into the truth behind what's hidden, from calendar changes to biblical evidence to NASA's occult roots and the name of Yahusha. If you're not already watching both, you're only getting half the picture. Stream me too. I'm Quaver TV on Spotify and Apple Music. And while you're there, run up my track Earworm. That one doesn't feature the funky Worm sample yet, but the remix will. Be on the lookout. Thanks for watching Quaver TV. This is genius. Until next time, try to enjoy the daylight.